Can we give a little tip of the cap to somebody who deserves, some would say an apology. I'll just put it as some respect. The great John Calipari.
Yeah.
Who has had to sit there and listen to an ungrateful fan base like Kentucky wear him out, mistreat him, bully him, just the way they've talked about him, delivering them a national title, which, seemed like it was just yesterday. And now he decides to go elsewhere and pursue a job elsewhere. He gets to Arkansas. They're underdogs against St. John's. Everyone just assumes that Rick Pitino is the better coach and he's going to take his team places, and John Calipari in Arkansas get it done over the weekend. So congratulations to Coach Cal.
Are you not going to acknowledge that it was against St. John's, a higher seed, a team that was favored? I'm not really sure why. Again, that was one of the games and the matchups that, look, Arkansas is a more talented team. He brought a lot of those kids with him from Kentucky, hit a much bigger NIL pool. I still think Rick Pitino is a better coach, and I understand that John Calipari is second coach in men's NCAA history to take 4 different teams to the Sweet 16. It had been 5-6 years since he took a Kentucky team to the Sweet 16. That's one of the reasons why they kind of pushed him out. And there also comes a point in time, I think, in a coach's tenure where sometimes things get stale. And I think that's probably where his time was at Kentucky. And Arkansas felt motivated, and they have generated a lot of momentum behind him, at least for this year. But Kentucky's in the Sweet 16 too. So that's the other side of there's so many storylines off this matchup. The first thing I'll say, though, about that game, that was the worst officiated game I think I've seen in the tournament so far. The fouls, it was 42 fouls or something like that were called. It may have been more than that. I forget at what point in the game I saw that flash up on the screen. I was like, my God.
It was a rough watch.
Well, look, I understand it was a physical game, but there were some inconsistencies. It felt like, especially towards the end, the officials really wanted to make their legacy about being the officials that were a part of this game. And there's that was, Rick Pitino and John Calipari were 2-2 versus each other coming into that matchup, and Calipari now has the advantage. He's 3-2 against Pitino. But that was a game that was huge, I think, for either side, and kind of making their case as far as for Kentucky fans, who was probably the better between the two. Again, I still side with Pitino. But at the end, it put even more pressure on Mark Pope. And for Kentucky to be able to get to that level, to the Sweet 16, if not even further. They're a higher seed, they had a better season, but still, where Kentucky goes as compared to where Arkansas goes, and this is not the right way to look at it, but it's how it's going to be discussed. It's going to send Kentucky fans into a state of chaos if Arkansas makes it further than Kentucky. They are going to go nuts if that takes place. And the sad thing about it is, I don't know that Kentucky's as talented as Arkansas is, with all the players who left and all the players Cal brought with them. But if they play how they did this past weekend, to me, they're a Final Four team. That's where I've got them going. Part of that's more my heart than my head, because I've grown up kind of a Kentucky basketball fan, but we'll see. We'll see what the rest of the tournament holds.
Why did Pitino pull Luis out? That was a big conversation coming out of the game. That's your player of the year in the Big East. Why would Pitino pull him out and never put him back in? He didn't answer the question, but I'd ask you guys, if you have I know he said he played his minutes, and there was 4 minutes left, but you needed points. They weren't scoring as many points.
You want to hear from Slick Rick?
Come on, let's hear it.
All right.
Let's hear him.
You had RJ on the bench, for a pretty long stretch at the end. Was that just because he just wasn't making them, or was there something more to it?
Played 30 minutes. It's a long time.
So he was tired?
No, played 30 minutes, and I went with other people. You already know the answers, Roger. You're asking leading questions. You already know it. So don't ask leading questions. You already know why he didn't play.
Was there one play with RJ that made you sit him in the last 5 minutes?
You know he was 3 for 17. You know he was 0 for 3. So you're answering your own. I'm not going to knock one of my players.
So
he pulled him for poor play. Basically, that's the reality of it is.
Yeah, he had a bad shooting night, and that happens. Like we talked about that being the Achilles heel for any team that's a top seeded team or one of the best teams in a sudden death tournament like that. Like it only takes one bad shooting night and you're out, which is unfortunate. But that's the one thing where I look at it and say, if I was going to disagree with anything, it's like you got to give your star player a shot.
Yeah,
and I know.
What I'm thinking.
Yeah, and I think sometimes. And here's the thing I would say about his bad shooting night. And this is just my, watching the game, watching how it played out. I thought he took some bad shots. It wasn't even that he was missing a lot of shots, which he was, but it was compounded by the fact that they weren't great shots. And if it was either deep into the shot clock, I get that. That's kind of thrown on you. But there was times where it wasn't a great decision. It wasn't a great shot. And I wonder how much that played a factor or played a role in too, and him saying like, it's not even just that he's having an off shooting night. He's not even taking the shots we'd like him to take in this instance.
I mean, I respect, obviously Rick Pitino is going to be more in tune with what he needs to do, more than myself. But I just felt like in that moment, when you pull your best player out with 4 minutes left, like you pull them out and it's like, take a deep breath. Are you all right? Okay, get back in there. To hold them out. And the whole team was struggling to score. The whole team was struggling on offense. So to me, I just felt like you got to put your best player back in and see it through, see if he can catch fire for you down the stretch.
I think there was more to it because Lewis said after the game something along the lines of, I didn't play like a leader today, and I just wonder if he might have popped off, and that might have been also part of the reason why he was left out.
You think he popped off? You think that was what it was?
I think something happened.
I wouldn't have kept him out for that either. Like, let's handle that after the game.
Yeah.
I mean, he played to lead off with, he played 30 minutes. Like, come on, Rick. I know it's a leading question, and you're right. It was a leading question. I get that. He was trying to lead you down somewhere where he already knew the answers. He felt like he was playing poorly. But I still don't feel like that was total justification. So to your point, Jonas, there could have been something more to it that wasn't being discussed, that maybe there was an idea of what the relationship could have been. Maybe that could have played a part in it.
It can't just be, he had a bad shooting night. So did everybody on the team. Like everybody
That's
on the
correct.
court had a bad shooting night.
By the way, that was one of the worst shooting performances by both teams in the tournament.
They missed 90 shots.
It was miserable to watch.
Everybody did.
And going back to like another example of this earlier, and to your point, LaVar, like keep the guy in there, eventually help him work it out of it. I mean, I remember Tim Hardaway, like back in the day for the Miami Heat, dude, that guy, if he was having a bad shooting night, because he just keeps shooting. And like eventually law of averages, like he would shoot his way out of it.
Yeah.
But, I look at Braden Smith, the point guard for Purdue, and go back and watch their high point matchup, their opening matchup. He struggled. And I'm sitting there watching with my pops, watching with Chopper. And I was kind of hyping him up going into it. I'm like, hey, like Tom Izzo had a lot of great things to say about him. And, he was like 0 for 6, 7, 8, like in the stretch of when we were watching the game. And he's like, man, he just can't buy a bucket tonight. And the reality is Painter still left him in. He wasn't going to take him out. He's that integral to his team. And I think when you have a star player like that, you have to allow him to find other ways of being able to get points or getting the basket. And what he ended up doing, he found ways to get layups towards the end as they started to distance themselves. And he found ways to get to the free throw line. And he ended up, hitting a few free throws that I think helped a little bit towards the end too, and him getting back into a rhythm. So that was the one thing I think was questionable by Pitino. In the end, I'm still not sure it was going to make a difference. Like, I just think Arkansas was the more talented team, and they were going to make a play in the end to win that game.